Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. I'm here today on April the 22nd. Is Wednesday, of course. We're going to be looking today at some news about Jack Grealish that's come out on the Athletic podcast. Today we're also going to be looking at an update on Upamecano as well, who is seemingly linked with United. That's just in there now. That's in the bowl, in the mixing bowl. There's a sort of like an eaten mess of transfers going on that you got. Your meringue, your strawberries, your cream, your whatever, and you Sancho, Grealish, Upamecano's now in there. He's just in the stir. We're stirring him in. He's getting in there as well. So we're going to be giving the latest on that deal or that potential deal, as well as what's going on with Jack Grealish, which is the main thing. Joe, lad, at the end, can you recap Housen's video about the transfer market collapse? I haven't had a chance to see it yet. I could sort of, but there's loads of different points that's sort of all put into one quite long video, so I don't think I could really give a wrap up on this video that would do justice to that video. I think it's really good. Just go and watch it. Sorry, that's not the great answer, is it? People saying good morning. What's happening, Joseph? Not a lot. Well, although we have got some news about Jack Grealish, so that's happening. Let's check that out. Let's get straight into that then. How's everyone doing at home? First of all, let me know what your Wednesday is looking like. Another week, halfway through another week. I don't know if it's going fast or if it's going slow. I can't work it out. Is it going fast? Anyway, this is, like I said, coming from The Athletic, that Manchester United have made Jack Grealish their top target this summer. There have been reports. There have been loads of different reports on Grealish. So first of all, the reports were in the winter that United were interested in Jack Grealish to try and get him in the winter. Then it became quite quickly apparent that Villa weren't going to let him go in the winter because he's got a relegation battle to fight and to be their sort of main man for. So that was quickly sort of snubbed. Great transfer word, snubbed. So that was quickly snubbed. Then the talk was of the summer. And it's a similar thing that we've seen with Jadon Sancho, where United approached Borussia Dortmund last summer and they were like, give it a year. Apparently this summer's the year that everyone wants to sell people. So Jack Grealish, we approached Aston Villa in the winter. I'm not sure if we approached them last summer, but I think we pretty certain that we did approach them in the winter, with a view to a deal being done in the winter. But like I said, they sort of said that's not going to happen. We need him for the rest of the season. So then came the end of the season. Then there was this controversy over Jack Grealish crashing his car. Was he drinking? Was he not drinking? The official story is he wasn't drinking, but those were some of the things being reported early on in that story. Then there was this host of stories, two different stories that put this in doubt. One was the story that United don't like this guy as a person, and people think, well, that's the question. Not don't like him, but the question is does he have the right sort of character to play for Man United? Do we want someone that's getting in this sort of front page news all the time, crashing his car, getting in fights? These are sort of things that we've seen from him down his career. And there was a big host of newspapers saying that, this deal's done. United don't want Jack Grealish anymore. He's proven himself once again to be unreliable off the pitch. And Solskjaer is trying to put together this team with great characters and people who want to be there and people who play the right way and who do the right things on and off the pitch. And then there was the next wave of stories, the sort of backlash to that wave of stories where people were saying, you know what, actually they do still want him. He's a good player. People want him. And they're still interested in Jack Grealish. Right, okay, there's that next story. And then the next lot of stories was actually United don't want an attacking midfielder anymore because Paul Pogba might be staying. So what we want now is a defensive midfielder. So this leads us to where we are now, which is Jack Grealish being talked about in the Athletic podcast. And this was Laurie Whitwell, of course, friend of the show, has been on Stretford Paddock before. Laurie Whitwell saying that his information, and again, this is his reports, that United aren't necessarily put off by what happened a couple of weeks ago, and Jack Grealish, United is still very much in for Jack Grealish, according to his information. He said other people might think that they're prioritising a holding midfielder, a right winger, or a striker, and then he said which is all priorities, which is all positions that would look to strengthen, but his info is that Jack Grealish is the top target this summer. Ole puts a lot of faith in signing the right kind of person as well as the right kind of player, and that apparently his actions, crashing his car, all that sort of thing, was noted and taken and will be taken into account in sort of any sort of transfer that does happen. That has all been taken into account, but it seems interesting as well that he almost suggests that Grealish is a target ahead of the likes of Jadon Sancho, where he says other people might think priority is a holding midfielder, which again we were talking about there, which is strangely enough, unless, correct me if I'm wrong, someone maybe put it in the comments, have we even been linked with any specific holding midfielder? Like, people talk, oh, United want a holding midfielder. Have we even been linked with anyone? Please let us know. Vinny Sill saying Jack is not coming. So, some people think this one's done, and, why we're still talking about it, you don't even think it's happening. We've been linked with a holding midfielder in theory, but I haven't seen any names be thrown around. And then, like I said, or a right winger or striker, which is, obviously Jadon Sancho is the right winger that we're all talking about, that we all know that United are interested in. And yet, like I said there, Laurie Whitwell seemingly putting more emphasis on this Jack Grealish transfer than a Sancho one. Do you think that Grealish should be United's top target? Someone saying Thomas Partey. We have been linked with him a little bit, but if you sort of getting a grasp of everyone who's been linked with him, it seems as though Arsenal are leading that race. If you believe, the rumours and the links, I think if you're an Arsenal fan, you would think, hang on a sec, I think we've pretty much signed Thomas Partey here. So we've been loosely linked with Thomas Partey, but mostly in sort of comparison to Arsenal's interest, from my experience anyway. Joe, I thought Sancho was our top target. Well, so did I, but that's why this is the news today, because it seems as though maybe, I don't know if this is new information that's been given to Laurie Whitwell. I don't know if he sort of lumped in right winger with central defensive midfielder and striker as his comparison to people who United want to sign with Grealish. Maybe he just did that sort of off the cuff and wasn't quite thinking, or maybe there is now word coming out, and again I'm just speculating here, that Grealish would be that top target. But again, I thought Sancho was the top target as well. I thought he was the number one. Partey isn't here CDM. Yes, exactly. Well, I was just mentioning before that we have been linked with a CDM or a defensive midfielder, or sort of a deep line midfielder. We've been linked with that position rather than any actual people that play in that position. Holding midfielder is seemingly the most unsexy transfer you can make. Maybe second goalkeeper. I don't know. I think maybe second goalkeeper's obviously not very sexy. Is it left back? Left back's not that sexy either, is it? What tier is Laurie Whitwell? The Athletic are tier 3, so reliable and have sources, but don't always get it right every time, pretty much. News changes each day. Well, that's news for you. That's because stuff's new, so that's news. The changes are the things we report on, yeah. Newcastle will sign Pogba. Vinny Searle, mate, you're getting ahead of yourself now, aren't you? He should not be our top target at all. People aren't necessary. See, the general consensus in the comments then, let me know, do you think we should sign Jack Grealish, or are you not interested? Because it seems as though there's a bit of unrest and distrust towards Jack Grealish at the moment. Grealish is better than Maddison. Thomas Partey, Jack Grealish is a game changer. When the game isn't going our way, he can just pull something out of nowhere. I would still love him to be signed. Tonali is a huge project. Bloody hell. Tonali is a huge prospect, but will likely go to Juve. Maybe we'll keep Pogba then. Yeah, Tonali, that's an interesting point actually, Ben. There's all this stuff of talking about Paul Pogba going to Juventus or going to Real Madrid, but Tonali is one that, again, if you were a Juventus fan and you'd been following the news from a Juventus perspective, as far as I've seen, it looks as though Tonali's joining Juventus, or seems close to joining Juventus, again, by any metric that we sort of challenge things and look at things on here. A lot of people saying that Tonali is likely to be going to Juventus. So how would that affect a potential Pogba transfer and in turn a potential Grealish transfer? It'll be interesting to see. And it's Joshy saying Sancho first. Cam Watt saying like the video. Yes, please do like the video. We're here every morning at 11, of course. So if you could like the video, that'd be fantastic. I'm sure people think Newcastle can spend 500 million. They can't because of financial fair play. Yeah, they can't. They can switch things around and they'll spend more than they have been spending, I'm sure. But they can't just go out and buy Mbappe and Pogba and Neymar and Messi just because they've got rich owners. There are a lot of owners that wish they could spend more on their clubs but can't because of financial fair play, and a lot of owners who do spend more than they're allowed to and get told off by financial fair play. So yeah, I don't think they can just go and buy everyone. sorry, Joe, it was a wake and bake day. Poch to Newcastle. Vinny Sills lost his head this morning. How does Grealish even fit in the first team with Rashford, Sancho, Bruno, and Pogba? Would he be happy being a rotation player? That's a good point as well. That's another thing that I think one of the things that sparked this interest, or this supposed interest in a defensive midfielder, and kind of turned a few people away from Jack Grealish in the media, is this suggestion of, well, hang on a sec. We know United want Jack Grealish. We know that approaches have been made to Aston Villa. Talks have been conducted with his sort of. I don't know whether it would be with his agent or whether it's with Villa, but I know for certain that United are interested in Jack Grealish. Whether that comes off or not is another matter, because as we said yesterday, and as I say most days, transfers can be right up to the line and still not happen. But I think that United are definitely interested. But one of the reasons I believe that this defensive midfielder has been being touted around is because you sort of think, actually, Bruno's looking great. He's certain to play. Paul Pogba, when he's fit, is certain to play. There've been more rumours of Paul Pogba staying. He's been on podcasts recently. He's been on social media more. He's been doing all this, and this. And there are rumours floating around that he may be well sign a new contract. And then also, all of a sudden you're thinking, we can't have a midfield of Grealish, Pogba, and Bruno, because whilst they're industrious players, all three of them, none of them are particularly defensive or want to sit back. So then you think, well, why do we need to spend 80 million quid on Jack Grealish when he might be on the bench anyway? But you look at the top teams in the country, Man City especially, look at their midfield, the amount of players they've got. They've got David Silva, Bruno Silva, De Bruyne, Fernandinho, what's the Spanish one, Gundogan, Raheem Sterling. They've got, I think they've got even more than that. But all of these people, take Sterling off that, they've got 6 top central midfielders. Did I say Fernandinho? I think I did. 6 top central midfielders. United have got McTominay, Fred, who are both good. Matic, who looks like he's coming back, but we're not sure. Bruno, Pogba. So we've got 5. And maybe really take Matic out because he's not as good as any of those City ones. So we've got 4. So even if you put Grealish in there, and even if you put a defensive midfielder in there, we're still only as good as City's midfield. And they've got Foden and they've got other players as well. I'm just listing their sort of top stars there. And I think that having top players like Jack Grealish as a rotation, or someone who will get 30 appearances a season, I think Mason Greenwood's got 30 appearances this season. So you don't have to be the first team player to get a lot of minutes and a lot of games. I think United need that sort of level of player to be not necessarily your first choice. You've got your first choice players. You've got Paul Pogba, Bruno Fernandes, and then Matic and Fred and McTominay to kind of sort out those positions behind those players. But instead of bringing Andreas Pereira on, and no offence to Andreas Pereira, I think he tries his hardest every game. I think he's been at the club for a long time. I have a lot of respect for him as a player, and I think that he'll go on to play somewhere else and look very good for them. But would you rather be bringing Andreas Pereira on when you're struggling to break down Watford, or would you rather bring Jack Grealish on when you're struggling to break down Watford, or Paul Pogba on, or Bruno Fernandes on? Do you know what I mean? I think increasing that sort of base level, was it a rising tide lifts all ships or something? A rising sea lifts all ships. So we get it. So if Jack Grealish is coming up here, everyone gets lifted up. Everyone, the base level that all the sort of top pieces are sort of playing on and playing above is lifted up. I use the wrong sort of analogy, but you kind of get my point. Financial fair play checks the previous 3 years' losses, so that will allow Newcastle to spend a bit more than a small fortune. Well, it does do that, but then you get screwed in 3 years' time, and the club gets liquidised and all that. You can't just spend what you want and then 3 years later, oh no, oh sorry, it's too late. I think they'll struggle to win the league in 3 years, no matter how much they spend. Joe, who does your nails? Me. It's not about how we accommodate how much the player will be played. We must have the strongest squad with competition for places and rotation possibilities. We will have injuries, etc. Yes, exactly. That's the point. If Paul Pogba gets injured, which doesn't seem unlikely these days, even if he is here next season, Paul Pogba gets injured, then Jack Grealish is playing every minute. Or if Paul Pogba gets injured and then Bruno gets injured, then actually no, it's not too bad because we've got Fred, McTominay and Grealish. It's not the best midfield in the league, but it's certainly better than we were at the start of last season when Paul Pogba got injured. So I think it takes the pressure off everyone. It means that Bruno doesn't have to play every minute. It means that, I think one of the reasons Rashford got injured, well, one of the reasons he certainly got injured is because he had to play every minute on the left. And I think if you have competition for places, and not only does it provide competition in the change room, on the training pitch, where people will fight for those places, what it also does is allows people to have a rest when they need one, and you don't have to play as many minutes, and you don't have to do this, and you can come off at 60 minutes. And when you feel that twinge, you think, actually no, Jack Grealish is on the bench. A full fit Jack Grealish is better than me with my back twinging. I'll come off, rather than my back hurts, but the options on the bench aren't great, so I need to stay on here. I think it's just better to have the better squad you have, the more chance you have of winning things. Right, moving on to our second story today then. That was a long one, wasn't it? Second story, United knocking on the door of Deo Upamecano, and we've got something that I love. We've got a translated article. Yes. Google Translate, bringing the humour once again. This is from France Football, who I don't think they are the most reliable outlet, but I think they're not. Again, it's hard when they're not outlets you're used to growing up with. I know roughly the lay of the land when it comes to sort of British media and British press and journalists. Obviously, I don't know everything and everyone, but roughly who's reliable, who isn't, who gives this good stories, who's good with this person, who's got connections to Mourinho, who's got connections to Van Gaal. You kind of get a gist for things. France Football is a blind spot of mine, I'll be honest. And if anyone at home says they know much about France Football, they're lying. But this has been reported in the Express, and this is the source of that story. So they say that Man United are aiming to beat 4 Premier League rivals for 35 million Kalidou Koulibaly alternative. Manchester United are increasing their interest in Arsenal, Chelsea and Manchester City and Tottenham target Deo Upamecano because he's a cheaper option than Kalidou Koulibaly. Does this stink a little bit of let's get as many names in the article as we can so Tottenham fans, Arsenal fans, City fans and United fans will all read it and we'll get more ad money? I don't know. I didn't say that. A lot of it is just talking about Upamecano as a player, 21-year-old French centre-back, plays for RB Leipzig in Germany. The key interest here, which is the quote that they're getting from France Football, is Arsenal hold a long-term interest in Upamecano, but their financial limitations are likely to rule them out of the race. Chelsea, Manchester City, Tottenham and Arsenal are also in the race. United are reportedly knocking on the door, however, having identified Upamecano as a cheaper alternative to Koulibaly. Is an interesting point. He's out of contract next summer and shows no sign of wanting to extend his current deal. So I think he's got a £50 million buyout clause, but you bear that in mind. That was the buyout clause when he signed that contract, presumably 3 or 4 years ago, and now that contract's only got a year left on it. So you would think he would be going for less than that buyout clause. Let's go to France Football then and get what he's actually said. Let's see if there's any fire with this smoke here. This article is broken down into a few different categories. One is, why is it bankable? Why is its value? Why is its market? And this is the point where United are. There's an interesting thing said here, and again, we're sort of putting this through the filter of this has been Google translated from French, so this may be slightly interesting or inaccurate, but it says the Premier League, of course, and it's reciprocal. Just before joining Austria, Deo Upamecano visited the Man United facility, and they even tried to sign him to the Red Devils. Did anyone know that? Is that true? Deo Upamecano went to United facility. I assume that means Carrington, the training ground, that sort of thing. Had a look around. I wasn't aware of that interest when he was a teenager, so that's something interesting. United and Tottenham are both credible candidates. Financially, Arsenal are not really capable, but it's Man United, especially under reconstruction. I assume that means under sort of Solskjaer kind of changing the squad and turning it into a slightly different prospect than it has been. Should once again knock on the door. A less expensive track than the Senegalese Kalidou Koulibaly. So the interest there is seemingly based on, he's a bit cheaper than this other bloke, which is that a reason to buy someone? Potentially, if we're putting focus on other areas, and we think that we've got a relatively stable partnership in Lindelof and Maguire at the moment, which seems to have turned a corner in terms of its goal concessions or conceding of goals. Maybe Upamecano is a decent kind of 21-year-old youngster to come through and take that spot from Victor Lindelof. The only thing that I would think about is maybe Axel Tuanzebe, but again, the problem is, as much as I think Axel Tuanzebe is an excellent player, I think Eric Bailly is an excellent player, but genuinely planning long term with players that have been consistently injured throughout their career is just a difficult thing to do, isn't it? And I don't want to rule anyone out, I don't want to write anyone off. We've seen plenty of players have tricky periods of even 2 to 3 seasons where they're consistently plagued and nagged by injuries, and then come back and they'll play 3 or 4 seasons in a row, scot-free. Look at Falcao is a good example of that, where he's had 2 or 3 cruciate ligament injuries, and other than those injuries, plays 40 games a season. Vincent Kompany is another one at City. He would have periods where he'd play for a year, then he'd be on and off injured for a couple of years, and then he'd play for another year. And I think, if a player is good enough, they can overcome injuries unless it's completely debilitating. But it does seem as though this centre-back option, which we thought, certainly I thought at the end of the season, or as the season was going on, we wouldn't be targeting a centre-back. It keeps being brought up, it keeps being sort of lifted up as one of United's key targets. So do you think United should be signing a centre-back? Another centre-back is a luxury signing. Even if we sell Smalling, Rojo and Jones, we have 4 centre-backs and Mengi coming through. There's another point. Smalling is almost certain to leave. It looks as though Phil Jones might be leaving as well. And Marcus Rojo, if we can get him out the door, we've already let him go once this season. I'm pretty sure a permanent signing wouldn't be off the cards. Then you're 2 injuries away from, Eric Bailly and Axel Tuanzebe being, let's say Victor Lindelof gets suspended and Harry Maguire's injured. Then you've got Eric Bailly and Axel Tuanzebe playing together, who have never played together and who very rarely are even not injured at the same time. So I think 4 centre-backs isn't enough. I think you need at least 5 playable centre-backs, potentially 6. United have got 6 centre-backs at the moment. We've got Rojo, we've got Jones. I know Rojo left on loan, so we've got, even then, we've got 5 with Jones, Smalling, Lindelof, Maguire, Tuanzebe and Bailly. I just think if these players leave who look like they may well be leaving, we're going to need some reinforcements there. Why isn't anyone talking about Calvin Phillips from Leeds looked very promising against Arsenal? Because I don't know if United are interested in Calvin Phillips. I've not heard that we are. Kamutra says, I hope we get him because his name is Wicked. Yeah, Ed could get a really class Meccano commercial deal. Oh, we already linked with Lego though. You're going to struggle to get a Lego Old Trafford and a Meccano Ed Woodward or something. Might be interesting, but I think we'll struggle to get 2 creation-based child's games off the ground in terms of sponsorships. Upamecano has repeating knee problems as a 20-year-old. Might as well trust Bailly to stay fit. The difference is, though, is that Upamecano, I think, has played... how many games has he played this season? I think he's played quite a few games this season. And repeating knee injuries are, of course, never a good thing. And you see that they tend to go different ways. He's played 29 games this season, which is, I think, probably about 25 more than Eric Bailly has. And I'm not saying that you're wrong in your assessment about knee injuries, and knee injuries are always one thing to be very cautious of. One thing I will say about knee injuries is, sometimes you go one way and like Michael Owen, where you never quite recover from a succession of injuries that sort of crescendoed with that knee injury. I remember on the touchline where his sort of knee collapsed under him. You never quite recover from it. And other people, like Ruud van Nistelrooy, you have a knee injury, you're out for 8 to 10 months, you come back and it never really affects you again, or you have a successful career as someone who doesn't have knee problems. So it really is difficult to know exactly what a knee injury means, because there's lots of different knee injuries, and some you recover from, some you can be as strong as ever from, some sort of chip away at you. And I'm sure that any sort of scouting team, any sort of look into Upamecano's fitness and his ability to play for United would take that sort of thing into account. But it is definitely something to be taken into account, so that's a great point. Maybe Tuanzebe out on loan and bringing in Upamecano. But it's weird that you're sending out the 22-year-old or the 23-year-old on loan and bringing a 21-year-old in. Not that I know people mature at different rates, but it's certainly a bit of an undermining of Tuanzebe. I think if you bring in someone in who's younger than him and sending him out on loan, but if that's what he's doing, then it may need doing. I think we need a left-footed centre-back similar to Ronnie Johnson. Van Gaal was keen on that, wasn't he? He liked to sort of split the team in terms of left footers on the left side, right footers on the right side. I think Harry Maguire tends to play on the left. So do we need a left-footed player? Maybe not. Anyway, some good comments there about this though. I think I've played more games for United than Eric Bailly. No, you haven't. That's a lie. I've never seen you on the pitch. Are we at the point yet where print media is referencing YouTube channels as sources for articles? I believe yes, we are. That's been the case for a while. I mean, just from close to us perspective, an interview that I think Stephen did with David Ornstein was part of the sort of circulation of transfer rumours, and the Simon Stone interview as well a while ago. It just depends who the sources are, but it does happen. Anyway, that's going to be all from me today. We're going to be back with a debate this afternoon. Me, Adam McCullough, and Alex as well, so make sure you check that out. That's going to be a fun one. Thank you very much for joining me at home. Hope you all have a great Wednesday, the 22nd of April. I'll say it again at the end. We'll see you in a bit.